Welcome! Today we're going to talk about reading. And reading is something that parents can do at home, since we're all at home, to boost our kids' reading comprehension and understanding for the future. It starts at a very young age. My mom read with us and she did this book in such a cool way. And all the books she read, she did so many things intuitively that reading experts encourage. So making this video for kids, I'm going to read this book. And then parents, I will tell you why I did some of the things I did as I read the book. So I'm going to start out with the book as I would read it to a child or a group of children, and then I will read it, then we'll talk about it at the end. Okay, let's get in. The Monster at the End of This Book, starring Lovell Furry Old Grover. Hello, everybody! The Monster at the End of This Book, written by John Stone, illustrated by Mike Smolin, featuring Grover, Jim Henson Muffet, as performed on Sesame Street by Frank Oz. This is a very dull page. What is on the next page? What did that say? On the first page, what did that say? Did that say there would be a monster at the end of this book? It did? Oh, I am so scared of monsters. Shh! Listen, I have an idea. If you do not turn any pages, we will never get to the end of this book. And that is good because there is a monster at the end of this book. So please do not turn the page. You turned the page! Maybe you do not understand. You see, turning pages brings us to the end of this book, and there is a monster at the end of this book. But this will stop you from turning pages. See, I am tying the pages together so that you cannot... You turned another page! You do not know what you are doing to me. Now, stop turning pages. Grover's getting really frustrated, isn't he? He's looking, he's like, ah! Oh boy, poor Grover. Do you think there's a monster at the end of this book? I don't know, let's find out. There. I, Grover, am nailing this page to the next one so that you will not be able to turn it and we will not get any closer to the monster at the end of this book. Bing, bonk, plonk, bing, bang. It's all the banging. All right. Do you know that every time you turn the page, you not only get us closer to the monster at the end of this book, you make a terrible mess. This will stop you from turning pages. A heavy, thick, solid, strong brick wall. I would just like to see you try to turn this page. Do you think we're going to be able to turn the page? He built a whole wall. Look at all that mortar and bricks, and he's got his lunchbox. Let's see. At this point, I would have a volunteer come and see if they could help me try to turn the page, and then, oh, Grover says, do you know that you are very strong? The next page is the end of this book, and there is a monster at the end of this book. Oh, I am so scared. Please do not turn the page. Please. Should I turn it? Well, look at that. This is the end of the book, and the only one here is me. I, Lovell Furry Old Grover, am the monster at the end of this book. I told you, and you were so scared. I told you there was nothing to be afraid of. Wait a second. He did not tell us there was nothing to be afraid of. He told us not to turn the page. Oh, I'm so embarrassed. Have you ever been embarrassed like that? Like you told someone you thought something was true and then you found out it wasn't true, or you said something silly and people kind of laughed. Yeah, I've done that too. He's like, oh, I'm so embarrassed. Oh. So that was The Monster at the End of This Book. I hope you enjoyed it. Before we talk about what you can do to help your kids' comprehension, I just want to talk about reading in general. It is so important for kids. By the time they reach 4th grade, reading becomes integral to school success overall. By 4th grade, it's important that they can read in all content areas because that's how learning takes place. Science, history, math, all of them involve reading. So, and then obviously reading literature. But reading children's books may seem like, how is reading the monster at the end of this book or another children's book going to help my child succeed in science class? Well, it starts with vocabulary. There is elevated vocabulary used, even in very small books, as well as sentence structure. There is not elevated vocabulary in The Monster at the End of this book, but he does use I, Grover, am nailing this page to the next one. He uses an expression that we don't usually say. I, Edie, believe that, da 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 da. So that's an elevated way of speaking. Here's an example from Bear Snores On, an adorable book. If you have not gotten it, please do. But here's one. In a cave in the woods, a slumbering bear sleeps through a party in his very own lair. Ooh, slumbering and lair are two words that we don't use, but in context we can tell what they are. And reading those words to kids will help their vocabulary grow and improve. And that book is intended for, 2 or 3 year olds can grasp that one. So let's talk about some things that you can put into your reading to help comprehension. The first one is voice. So in writing, students are told to share themselves and to allow readers to recognize their voice in their writing. You recognize this if you have a friend share something on Facebook and they shared it from someone else. You kind of read it and you're like, you read it in your voice. But if your friend writes something and they've communicated effectively, do you read it in their voice? I do this where I'm like, oh, I can totally hear her saying that, or that sounds just like him. That's effective communication using voice. When you're writing fiction, characters should make sense. You can hear Harry Potter's voice when you're reading J.K. Rowling's writing. So Grover, his voice, when you're reading in a story, voice becomes is obvious in a story like Monster at the End of this book. The size of the letters and the size of the words helps me know what sound and what volume I should speak at. So voice becomes apparent when you read. So make it interesting. Have fun with it. Give the characters voice. Logan used to do this to me. I'd be reading and I'd give a character a voice, like a gravelly voice. And you're like, no, that's not right. So I had to stop and go through with some repertoire of voices. Okay, use that one. The next one is make predictions. What do you think is going to happen? I don't know. Do you think there's going to be a monster? Are you scared? Make predictions about what's going to happen. This will help them down the road in history, in science, math, all the content areas, because they're realizing wait, I have to think about what I'm reading, what's going to happen. Making predictions is a really important part of reading. Be involved. Oh, we'll come back. Actually, I'll just do that one since I made a mistake. Be willing to make mistakes. Just like that. When I was reading through it, I read a paragraph. I read it wrong. I didn't have this ready because I wasn't ready for this section. I said, I told you there was nothing to be afraid of. And then I jumped back to this bubble and you were so scared. It's okay to make mistakes when you read because kids are learning too. So if they know that adults sometimes make mistakes and have to go back and fix things and say it correctly, or if you come to a word that you don't recognize and you're like, what is that word? Look it up. It's very powerful to admit that you don't know something and learn with your child. That is very powerful. I would highly recommend that. Become involved in the story. When I, try to rumble the page as you turn it and ask them to turn the pages. When you're reading with a baby, a board book, letting them turn the page is really powerful. It gets them involved. It can be really fun if you're reading a rhyming book like Dr. Seuss. If you've read it, especially a million times, you know what the word is, and they probably do too. So you could say, big A, little a, what begins with A, Aunt Annie's, and they, alligator, yay! So as they recognize the word, they start to put it together. Rhyming is really helpful for that. Letting them be involved in the story is powerful. Discuss. What did you think? Were you scared? Were you scared, or who was scared in the story? Let them figure it out, and then listen to what they have to say. If they say, I don't know, well, do you lead. Do you think Grover was afraid, or were you afraid? And don't correct them if they say, I was kind of afraid. That's okay. Well, Grover was afraid too. It's okay sometimes to be afraid. Discuss. There's no plan for this, because if you're truly discussing, you can lead a child or class through a discussion. That's very possible and helpful as a teacher. But having predictable answers, it kind of drives me crazy when I'm in a class and the teacher's like, okay, there's one thing, and then people come up with like 50 different things. Like, no, not that, and they're all viable options, but it's not the one thing the teacher was thinking. Have an honest discussion with your child can be really powerful. And then the last one is building empathy. Empathy has been declining for 25 years, and sociologists are very concerned about that in our society. We're seeing narcissistic tests and stuff go through the roof as social media, people put stuff on there. There's so many causes, and that's a whole other video. But we can build empathy by looking at Grover and seeing, oh, he felt embarrassed. Look at that, his feelings like this. Oh, when you see someone who's like, that looks like embarrassed. Or when you see someone who's like, they're frustrated. There's a slight difference between frustrated and angry. What's the difference between those things? Building empathy is powerful, and it's something that kids today especially need help with. Building empathy reduces bullying. It strengthens interpersonal communication, and there are so many wonderful things that building empathy can do. And that can be done through storybooks, even a story like The Bear Snores On, Monster at the End of This Book, and so many more. So thank you for listening. I hope this was helpful. Feel free to like or subscribe and look back for more videos.